ALTBAYS. ALTBAYS.
ALTBAYS. Yes, we're live. Welcome to ALTBAYS Show, brought to you by ALTBAYS.nz. We are a video productions media support company, so if you are looking into increasing the quality of your online content, get in touch. We've been running this show now for, I think, 14 or 15 weeks. This is show number 45. Darrell's age.
Hey.
And it's been fun. It's been a great, awesome ride. We had a cool show on Monday with our mayor, Sandra Gaudi. So if you haven't seen that, just check it out. Go on our page and watch that. A lot of people sent a lot of comments for us. Oh, there's that. Hey, you're welcome to suggest guests to come to our show. And if you didn't like something that you said, or if you don't agree, that's the beauty of a conversation. You're welcome to disagree or agree. And if you think you should be here to say something differently from what she said, yeah, we'll have a space for you. Okay? You can hire this space, ALTBAYS Studio in Whitianga, if you want to run your own podcast or if you want to do some live meetings. If you're running business overseas and you need a space to do high quality online meetings, webinars, this is the place. Okay? Subscribe to our channel. That's the best way to support this platform. We're bringing awesome, incredible, cool people, and we want to expand the guests. We want to bring more interesting people from all over New Zealand. So by subscribing to our channel, you're showing your support. Okay? So do that. Subscribe to our channel. If you want to become a sponsor or a supporter, get in touch. We have some interesting things coming up. So you can wait a little bit or get in touch and we can tell you what we're doing. We also have the ALTBAYS Clips, which is a channel where we break down the interviews so you can watch some of the highlights and then you pick which ones you want to listen, because I understand they are long shows, so you can pick your favorite one. And
hello.
That's it. Hi, Christine.
Right. Is that all?
There's so many things to say, but I
think you covered it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Was it all
You
right?
got it all, yeah.
I think so, eh?
Yeah.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
It's
How
good
are
to see you.
I know, I feel like it's always been a while, but I think it was just last week.
I think, when was
Friday.
it? Friday.
It was Friday, yeah.
It was a fun show, eh?
It was that was funny.
With Jess Hamilton,
Yeah.
the biker and tattoo enthusiast.
Yeah. She was funny. It was
We
good
had a
show.
laugh, eh? So yeah, if you haven't seen that,
A
yeah,
bit of a laugh, yeah.
it was a great show. And we had Jack supporting us here, doing the sound.
Yeah.
Good
He
show.
enjoyed it.
Did he? Good.
Yeah, he loved it.
Did you enjoy the show on Monday with Sandra?
Yeah, it was good. I tuned in a little bit late, so I haven't seen the first maybe like 25 minutes of your show, but I think that might be the reason I have no data left, because I had to drive to someone else's house and I had it playing while I was driving. So yeah, no, it was good. And I asked a couple of questions, fun to
Yes.
get online and ask too, so.
It's cool that you mentioned the data, because a friend was telling me, he was like, oh man, I love watching the shows, but on YouTube it takes so much of my data. And then I reminded him, I said, well, we are a podcast.
Yeah,
So for the people who don't have the time to watch the live stream,
listen back.
Next-
Save it. You can save it.
yeah, next day we are on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Amazon, blah, blah, blah. So
I
yeah.
think I like watching live because I enjoy reading other people's comments and yeah.
Yes. And
Yeah.
if shit goes down, it's live.
You're there with it.
And you're there.
You're there typing up some stuff too. I love it.
Exactly. Christine, tonight we have the pleasure to talk to a man who does a lot of stuff for this community. Me.
No.
I'm joking. Darrell Bird from Dive Zone.
Hey, welcome.
How are you?
Good, Darrell. How are you, man?
Very good, very
Yeah.
good.
Cool. Very, very famous voice in our community as well, for the people who listen to Coromando FM and to other medias here.
Hi, it's Darrell from Dive Zone Whitianga.
Oh, you gotta do it now,
Excellent.
man. Let's promote let's promote the business right now. Boom.
Hi, it's Darrell from Dive Zone Whitianga. Time for a change?
Nice.
That's us.
Yes.
Get into it.
How long have you been running the Dive Zone here in Talman?
So I opened the shop in 2004, October 2004. So 18, nearly coming up on 18 years.
Was that your first own business?
Yeah, so I'd looked around for a long time actually, where to go and where I could set up a shop or buy a shop. So And on the road trip, it led me to Whitianga.
Good
Was
choice.
it always going to be a dive shop that you wanted to open?
Yeah, I did my instructors in 95, 96. So that's the way I progressed down that path. So I worked for a few other people and ended up wanting to do my own thing. So.
Yeah.
And then I was working in Hamilton, and there's no ocean in Hamilton, right?
Nah.
So
No.
where do you go? So
They have a suspicious lake, but it's about
Suspicious lake.
it is.
Can do some diving in the suspicious lake.
Not
Find those
even if
fishes
you
with
paid me.
yeah. Find those fishes with
Yeah.
3 eyes.
Yeah.
the old lake diving thing doesn't really excite me so much.
Nah. Yeah.
Where did you get your qualification as a diver? Did you say 95?
Yes, I did my instructors in 95, 96 over that season, and then I did my open water ticket in Egypt in Dahab
Wow.
Oh.
Yeah, it's pretty
on my
cool.
OE, so in the early 90s. So
Sweet.
that was an amazing place. Can't remember much about it actually. It was a enjoyable 5 or 6 years of my life that was disappeared on the world trip. But yeah, diving became a big part of it. So
Wait, man, that's too many stories there as I can tell from what you can remember. So, how old were you at the time?
22, 23.
And you were on a cruise, or like you were choosing countries to go, and you already had that in mind. I want to be a dive instructor. Oh, how did that come about?
So I was just on holiday. We bumped into some.
Sorry, were you born in New Zealand?
Yeah.
Cool.
From the big city of Palmerston North.
Yeah.
So travelled overseas, and then end up in Egypt on holiday, and bumped into some people, and we cruised around for a while. And I was working on the Nile River for a while, doing cruises, bringing the tourists back to the guy's hostel.
Yeah.
So the Egyptians couldn't get on the train because they couldn't tout on the train. So he hired me, and I would go onto the second class carriage with all the backpackers, and I could sell our hostel. So when we got off, all the Egyptian businessmen were waiting to tout for business, but the whole train was coming with me.
Yeah.
So I had to leave there after a while. It was sort of wasn't appropriate
own safety.
for my own safety. Yeah, the guy I worked for, his business was very strong, but everyone else's was had no customers.
Wait, are you allowed to dive in the Nile? Is that a thing?
No, I
Or
don't
is it
think.
like frowned upon?
No, they wash and they do all sorts of stuff in there. So they do a lot of stuff in there. I'm not sure
Yeah.
what there'd be to see there for diving, but I did in the Red Sea and at a Dahab. So that was, that was pretty good. Looking over it, you're looking over it. Dahab, where's the next over there? Jordan and Israel, and everything's all. So you can see all those countries from the Nile. So if I'm from the Red Sea there.
It's pretty cool.
And why did you choose to go to those countries? Great options, interesting ones.
Oh, just to see the history, right? And we did the camel thing, and we went and saw the pyramids, and it was amazing, working right up the top to Abu Simbel, where a lot of the history comes from, way before any of the stuff they got in New Zealand, And then just a cool place to travel, really.
Have you been back since?
Not really, not up to there. Been to a lot of Europe, other parts of Europe, but not into that top part of Africa there and everything. So that's a one time. It's been a bit dangerous actually. There's a lot of the stuff over there, like
Especially Egypt at the moment,
Yeah. But we went up to Jordan, and then you go into Petra, where the walled city,
that's so cool.
and you see that on the Indiana Jones movies, and you see all that sort of stuff. So it's quite cool to actually have been to this place, where all that sort of happens. So that was a pretty interesting time. Worked in Israel for.
What's the feeling
6
there?
months.
Does it feel like eerie or?
It's quite crazy. Some of those old traditions where you can see the old stone tops where that's where they were sacrificing people and all that sort of stuff. So there's fairly like a hierarchy, I suppose, of the very rich ones and the peasants that lived in their rock huts were not as flash as the richer people, I suppose. So
Do you remember like getting along and communicating with people, or it was a very like touristic experience?
no, it was very laid back. We didn't do any of the sort of the paid tours as such. It was all
cool.
You meet some dude at the back and he takes you around, and it's a real local sort of trip, which is pretty cool. Real laid back. In that sense. And then meeting all these locals was really cool. They're very appreciative. They seem very happy. And when we were leaving there going to Israel, the border closed before we could get across the border, and we had nowhere to stay. So they put us up in this shop that hadn't been finished, and we're all sleeping in this unrenovated shop because there was nowhere to stay, right? So all the locals sort of come to the party. So
That's cool.
it was quite cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
That
You
is
don't, you
cool.
don't get that anymore, do you?
Well, it depends. Maybe it depends on where you are.
Like, if you went
The
overseas now and they're like, I'm a local, come with me and I'll show you.
The whole
You're like,
hitchhiking thing and that, like we hitched everywhere.
Yeah.
We did everything, you know, rather spend your money on cool stuff rather than
Yeah.
on that stuff. So
What did you have at the time? Like magazines, or you knew about things, or you were just asking, and then because there was no like way to.
no, there was no mobile phone. There's no emails. You disappeared off the face of the earth and you just sort of
Did
rolled.
you write home?
Did the old postcard, but the best way to communicate was by collect phone call. So you'd ring up and say, "This is Egyptian Telecom. We accept the charges," and you'd hear Dad in the background saying, "Nah." But he knew I was in
man.
Egypt.
Yeah, he's fine.
He knows I'm in
he's
Egypt,
calling
and
me,
then
must
we'd-
be all right. Yeah.
Yeah. So we did that all the way around
Smart.
everywhere.
Yeah. Oh, all you need to say, I'm alive.
Yes.
But the funny thing was, randomly, they'd say yes to take the call. Well, what do I say now?
You're like,
yeah.
Damn it.
So then you got to share all your stories with Mum, and then she puts Dad on and asks the same stories, and
Yeah.
you share the same stuff. So.
It could have been the kidnapper trying to call from Egypt.
Absolutely.
Or will the kidnapper get nut? And he's like, oh, never mind, I don't want you.
But very different, right? You had to
Yeah.
go and do stuff. You didn't look it up. You
Yeah.
know? You just jumped on a train, or you
That's cool.
end up where you end up, you know?
And how did you decide? How did that come to you? Okay, I'm here. Let's do this diving thing. Did you have friends with you that were like supportive of the idea?
Yeah, well, Dahab was just sort of in its infancy of those days. There was one little dive shop there, and it was a little. I know that the road was a sandy road, and you had to walk across a creek in the middle of town, and it was very, very laid back. And I'd always thought about it, but it just never fitted in. And then the opportunity came up to do the open water ticket in Dahab, so. And it's just beautiful. So it was an amazing experience. I was one of the only students that had finished all my homework because I spent the whole evening on the toilet. So it was the easiest thing with some Egyptian belly, you know.
Yeah.
So read my paddy book, you know. And learned all.
Yes.
So no, it was an interesting experience, and you had to get that suit off pretty quickly sometimes when you just got to go.
Yeah.
So when you did you want to ask?
No,
him?
no.
So you became an instructor, and then what was the next move right after that?
So I didn't do my instructors for probably another 5 years. So we travelled around for a bit, and then when I finally came back to New Zealand, I wanted to do tourism because I'd had such a good time doing this tourism, you know, as a tourist.
Yeah.
So enrolled in a diploma in tourism in Palmy, and I found it pretty stink actually. It was very generic, and it was very the same stuff I'd been doing. But the dive club had a newsletter saying about this instructor's course, and I'd never really thought about it, that could be a career. You know, you could do that as a job. Yeah. Never really thought about any of those sort of jobs. You know, the ski instructor, the dive instructor, all of those things I hadn't thought of it as a real job. So enrolled in that course and spent 4 months doing my instructors, and then bailed to Australia to work on the Great Barrier Reef.
So during those years of not working as a dive instructor, what were you doing? Where did you go? Come on, man, some
Oh yeah, we did
share
it.
some gems.
Everything pretty much. So initially we were working in this Mexican army, basically labouring, and this pallet of blocks needed to be moved to here, so they get moved to here. I'm a transport mule, and all the unqualified labouring type jobs that we did just to earn some cash to.
Which one was hard? You were like, fuck, why? Why am I doing this? God damn it.
Well, working in Israel was real big days, and the funniest part at the time was no one trusted anybody, so you got paid every day. At the end of the day,
Yeah.
so then you flush every day. So you go out and you have a good time.
Right.
And then you wake up in the morning and you got to stagger to work. And it's a long day, and you're never going to do that again, but then you get paid again. So that was a very interesting period.
Vicious cycle.
It was a vicious cycle because no one trusted anybody.
Yeah.
And they would turn up at all the backpacker hostels and want staff because those borders were closed, and there was a few things getting blown up, and you know there was a lot of tension there.
Do you remember seeing something that it really surprised you?
Yeah, I was working in Tel Aviv, and we'd just been renovating this shopping centre, and it was putting all this polystyrene stuff on and plastering around it and making it look newer. And then about a week later, a suicide bomber drove in there and blew the place up.
Oh, geez.
So that was the closest we sort of came
Yeah.
to that aspect of things, you know, the differences and how these guys were living, you know. So that was quite crazy to
That's scary.
be that close, you know.
Yeah.
You develop a different appreciation for life, eh? After being to those places and seeing.
Yeah, well, half the stories you actually didn't hear. You only heard with the lack of communication that was happening at the time. You know, you didn't have a text or a text or a
Yeah.
message.
You heard
So
about
half
when
the
you got
stories
home.
you heard it after the fact. You know, shit, I was there the day before that, or
Wow.
yeah. So travelled around Africa for a little bit as well, and I was there in '94 when there was a big ethnic uprising in Rwanda, and we went and saw the mountain gorillas, and then we went and saw the local ethnic band play, and then would have been 6 months later when I was back in England, found out that they got wiped out. You know, 500,000 Hutus all got
Oh, man.
but we didn't know anything about it, and we were
No.
just the next country over. We'd been there, but you sort of miss it because there is no communication. You know.
Did you make it to other continents in that time?
Asia, Southeast Asia is another mission that I've got to get back to and
Yeah.
do something there. And then, so travelled around for, quite a bit. Europe, Scandinavia, England, and then down into Africa, right down to South Africa, and then cruise back up on these overland trucks and stuff. So spent 3 weeks in hospital in London with malaria, you know. So yeah, it was all a pretty interesting time.
Yeah.
Wow.
So did you dive in all these places?
So I dived in a lot of them.
Where's your favourite? Or what, everywhere you've been, favourite spot?
It's really hard to say because there's such a variety of locations and different things to see. So the African continent is such something I'd love to get back there and spend some more time there. It's such an amazing place. You're on a big overland truck and the tyre blows out in the middle of nowhere and there's nothing around.
Yeah.
And they get the spare tyre out and they're pulling it off and they roll the old tyre into the ditch. And before you've put the new tyre on, someone's turned up and is rolling off with his tyre. And they're going to make jandals and
Yeah.
make, it's really interesting. Where did he come from?
Yeah. It's like he's waiting for it.
Yeah. So these guys were very appreciative of everything, and it was a totally different kind of world. Whereas Europe, they live in the same buildings, everything's fairly similar in that sense. Might speak different language, but it's all quite a similar life.
Yeah.
So I find that quite contrasting. That different lifestyle sort of aspect. So
How was the communication in the countries that you could not speak the language? Was it okay? Like English, most people could.
yeah, they tended to have a better opinion of the Kiwis as soon as they found out we were a Kiwi.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of the places in Africa that everything was 10 times the price when they're American, and then they barter them down. But
Yeah.
as soon as they know you're a Kiwi, they only double the price because we know we didn't play that same game as the Americans,
Yeah.
whatever. So it was quite interesting. The Kiwis had a good cred, I suppose,
Right.
and we sort of hung out and were a bit more relaxed about it than most of them as well. So
always good to pull that card, eh? To use that
Bring
one.
out the old passport. Was like,
absolutely, yeah.
It is a thing, yeah. Like the New Zealand passport it's very like well seen and welcomed around the world. Eh?
Yeah, we got good cred, and as I say, Kiwis, that's the big thing. Everyone goes overseas and travels, so there's a lot of Kiwis all over the show. Sport's been a big thing that's put us on the map, and
in the 90s, it would have been rugby, wasn't it?
oh, it was absolutely, yeah. Yep. So I was in Israel when the World Cup was on in '95, and this Jonah Lomu dude was smashing everyone down, and you're thinking, who is these guys? So but the brand New Zealand was very strong.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So following the journey here, so you go to Australia to start to work as a dive instructor and to focus on that.
So I did 2 years on the Great Barrier Reef, doing liveaboard trips, teaching divers. We were doing about 5,000 certs a year at our shop.
Wow.
It was, to put it into perspective, New Zealand does about 4,000 for the country. So
So just when you're... Wow.
massive numbers of certifications. The guys come on the bus and they're there for a week, and it's just very much a production line thing. I did 400 and something certifications myself in my first year, which is more than nearly what we do at our shop now, for the whole country, for the year. So
Yeah.
yeah, so it's quite amazing that aspect. And there's a lot of different companies there doing very, very similar 2, 3, 4 day trips out to the Great Barrier Reef, showing them all the cool sights. I remember my first course, I'd never been to the reef myself. I've never even seen a turtle. So I'd never seen some of these things, and my customers didn't know anything about that. So you get them out on the reef, and I got the skipper listening in one ear telling me what I'm going to see, and I'm giving the dive brief for this location I've never been to.
Yeah.
And then I'm sharing that with my customers. And then when we get down there on the dive, I'm pointing all the stuff out. And they were thinking I was so enthusiastic about the dive. Well, I've never seen it before.
Yeah, like, no, I'm happy too.
Over here. So it was pretty crazy, those first few courses, when you're getting that rhythm sorted for how the classes run. And then it was time to come back to New Zealand. And
How long did you spend there for? Did you say
2 years? Yeah.
2 years in Australia.
Yep. Right. When the hand starts to shake, it's time to leave. Right?
Yeah.
Was it just because it was too much work, and you wanted to come back to the country?
Yeah, it's a real different. It's a real production line. You don't get you see your customer for a week and they're gone. Whereas over here, we get to see our customers and they grow with you. You know, their kids and their kids, and that's quite cool. That dynamic.
Yeah.
So it was a very good time. It was a very good time, but it was time to settle down a little bit, I think.
Were you getting more qualifications at that time, or it was your time in New Zealand that you started to become more focused on, like, this is what I want to do, and I want to get better at this? And
yeah, so we ticked away. Like I think we had 15 instructors working for us over there, and you worked your way up the tree. Like initially, I was what was known as the anchor wanker. So when you arrive at the dive site, I'm down the bottom of the hole stacking the anchor, and the head instructor's on the top of the rope, chatting to all the customers and pointing the direction. But only a few months down the line, I've got my own anchor wanker, that does that job. He's the new guy.
Yeah.
So you progress quite quickly through that part of it. Yep. But you only ever did the same kind of diving, pretty much. We're taking guys for a play and just getting out and enjoying it, really. So it's when we came back to New Zealand, you start doing the career training, where you get to know the students and you see them for a longer period of time.
Yeah.
Right. So just so why it makes sense, because it might sound like a silly question, but apparently there's no stupid questions. So one thing is to get the license to be able to dive, and another thing is to become an instructor, right? So if I want to go and dive, maybe not by myself, is it okay to just get the license and go by yourself, or you get the license and you always have to go with someone? How is that process for the people like me who have no clue about it?
Okay, so learning to dive, the first thing, a lot of people just want to go and dive and get some seafood or see the beautiful environment that we've got here in New Zealand or overseas. So they can do an open water course, a recreational open water course. So we utilise PADI, which is one of the certification agencies, and we use their material and run their program. So that involves theory, e-learning, online theory, then pool sessions, and then 4 scuba dives in the ocean. And each time we're learning new skills. It's all about safety. So if something happens, I can clear my mask, I know how to take my rig out, I can change my tank, I can sort all that equipment out. And then from there, you can get out and go diving on your own in buddy team. So you and your mate or your friend can just go for a dive. So that's what a lot of the Kiwis do up here over summer.
Yeah.
How long does that take?
So the practical component for that, for us, is we can do that over a weekend.
Oh, cool.
So we do 2 dives off the beach on the Saturday normally, and then 2 dives off the boat on the Sunday is sort of our pattern.
What if you don't have a certificate to dive? Like, is that like if you get caught not having it, you're in trouble?
There's not a lot of cops under the water with their little submarines.
Yeah.
But
that we know of.
So we can't hire equipment to customers that don't have certification. Yeah. They can't go on a charter boat. They can't travel overseas.
Yeah.
New Zealand at one stage had a really high number of uncertified divers because Uncle Billy's got a set of gear at the batch and just put it on and she'll be right, mate. She'll be right. And that was the mentality or the way it was done in the past. But now with insurance and liability and people wanting to travel, it's getting a lot harder. So we train probably 500 recreational students every year to do their open water tickets, just through school groups or through recreational classes, just to go out and go diving.
Even if you go with an instructor? Is it still like legally you would still need the
Yeah, so you can do a discover dive. If you didn't have a ticket, you could come with me and enroll on a discover scuba diving course and do a introduction dive. But then if you want to take it any further, then you need to have your license. So it depends on the depths and things. So
What's the youngest you can start like signing up for courses?
So at the age of 8, you can do pool-based activities.
Yeah.
And do SEAL team missions, and they do aqua missions in the pool and play with a compass or go at night with a torch. So they can do all those sort of activities from 8 to 10. And then from 10 years up, they can learn to go in the ocean.
Yeah.
So 10 and 11-year-olds have to dive with their own parent or a PADI professional.
Yeah.
Or a dive professional. And then 12 upwards can dive with any adult. So we do quite a few junior courses here, especially with mum and dad have got a boat or someone has and they get out and play.
Yeah, it'll be my daughter. She'll be keen for that and not scared. She's not a chicken.
So my daughter learnt the day she turned 10 and we had to keep waiting. She couldn't understand that our PADI system is American. So when we went to log her into the system, it kept turning around saying she was only 9. Oh, yeah. Until it clicked over to she turned 10 in America, and then it would let her have the theory. So yeah, she got her ticket straight away.
Oh, sweet.
That's cool. Nice birthday present.
Yeah, it's a cool birthday present.
So we do an overseas. Well, we have been doing up until a couple of years ago, doing an overseas trip every year with the shop. So Caitlin's dived in a lot of these places now and snorkeled and hung out. So she didn't really have a choice. Really, it was sort of she had to like it.
So that's let's say the basic one. You want to go for a dive, so you get your license. Cool. Would the next one be becoming an instructor, or there's something in between that you can take it to a next level before?
Absolutely, yeah. So you get your open water ticket, and that has a limitation of 18 metres, so it sets the depth that you can go to. Right. And then as you get better or you want to learn more, you can go on and do your advanced course. So that lets you go to 30 metres, and it gives you a tip on using a compass and using your computer and getting more comfortable in the water, going a bit deeper and all that sort of stuff. So we show the effects of pressure on the students, what happens to a tennis ball at 30 metres.
I don't know.
Does it explode? I don't know.
Good. But these are the things we'll ask our students.
Yeah.
But it's got air in it, so the air inside is compressing, so the tennis ball implodes.
Yeah.
Right.
But you couldn't squash it on the boat. But when you're at the bottom, it's concave. So the same thing with an egg is another one.
That's scary because what's it called, bends, or the bends, that freaks me out.
So it's all the bends is staying too long, coming up too quick, sort of thing is potential issues. But it's like all these things are compressing as you go deeper.
Yeah.
So as they come back to the surface, they've got to expand back to the normal size. But if they come up too quickly, they can expand too quickly and then get caught in different places. Like if you shake up a Coke bottle, it's going to spray everywhere.
Yeah.
So that's part of the training is learning how to ascend and how to get out of those sort of situations.
What can you do for someone who has come up too quickly?
So if that did happen, we have O2 on the boat. We have all the safety stuff, and then we've got a dive emergency services in New Zealand. So we can contact them, and they'll then tell us to either go to the local doctors or they'll send the helicopter or they'll organise that. And the chambers in Devonport and Auckland. So they would then put you back in the chamber and take you back to depth and reduce the size of those bubbles over a period of time.
Yeah.
And then let them
bring you out slowly
and off gas. And most people have been, are fine from that incident happening. So
what is the deepest you can go in?
Or you've been.
Or you've been.
That's an interesting question.
Cool, yeah.
So the deepest you can go recreationally sort of is 40 metres if you've done your deep specialties and you've done your any of that sort of training at a recreational level.
Yeah.
And then our recreational instructor ratings are the same. Then you can go on and do tech ratings and go deeper, 40, 50, 60.
Wow.
It just changes the mixture of air that you're breathing as well. So there's different combinations of things that you can use to breathe, which change when you go deeper.
Yeah.
So I got away without answering that question, eh?
Yeah. So
so how deep have you been? Is it 40?
Of course it is. No, so as an instructor, you need to understand the effects of these things. So you need to try out some of the variety of ranges. And I've done some tech training. So my deepest dive was in Croatia, actually, on a B-17 bomber, and that was at 72 meters. Wow. So that was pretty amazing, descending down on this line, and the plane sitting on the bottom, and there's nothing around it, just a line going down that way and a line going back up that way. So
how did you feel in that moment that you could see, okay, I'm going down? Did you feel something like in your body, or was just your mind kind of like, whoa, man, okay, this is...
Yeah, so the effect of narcosis is one that comes on when you go diving if you start going a bit deeper.
Yeah.
It's a narcotic effect that the nitrogen has in the air we breathe.
Yeah.
So as you get more and more of it, it becomes narcotic.
Yeah.
And it's basically a mood enhancer. So if you're happy and relaxed, I was pretty excited. So I'm even more excited as we're descending, and then this plane's coming out of the bottom. So you're fizzing when you see this thing.
Wow.
Which was pretty exciting. So I'd read the book on it. I was sitting in this dive shop in Croatia, and he said he couldn't take me there the first day. This was on my honeymoon, actually. I had one day of diving allocation.
You're like, this is it. Make it worth it.
And when I had to go back and tell Linda that I need another day, because they wouldn't take us on, because he had to check me out that I'm comfortable to go to these depths. There was a picture of this T-shirt on the wall, and I wanted the T-shirt. And he went to get me the T-shirt, and I said, I can't have the T-shirt without diving the plane. Yeah. So Linda came for a dive on the first day, and then went back, and I said, I have to come back tomorrow and have another dive. And then he said, no, we have to do this other wreck first. So we did this big freighter at about 50 metres the next day to check that I was competent, I suppose,
so
in the
now
water.
it's a 3-day dive.
Yeah, so now we have to go back again and say one more day. So we had to do this for 4 days in the
4
end.
days.
Yeah, so Linda was getting it over by the stage. But then finally on the fourth day he said, I'm ready to do this plane. He goes, oh, no. And I looked at him really strange, and he came up to me and said, no, failure not the option. So he'd learnt one of my sayings over I'm having that T-shirt, and failure's not an option, I must dive it. And he came back to me, this Serbian guy, and said, no, failure not the option. We will take you on the plane, but we have to wait for the tide. Yeah. And you get out there in this little boat, and they dive down and tie a rope onto their float. That's a lot of the wrecks overseas are owned by someone, or someone has the rights to it, or so they hide where they are. Yeah. So the float was parked about 5 meters under the water, and he eyeballs the location of where the float is and dives down and ties onto it so that other people can't find this plane. And then it's like skydiving, you're just falling down this line, and then bang, the plane pops out of the bottom. So it was pretty impressive. Wow. So we spent about 17 minutes from when we started
to get down,
descend, have a look at the plane, and then we had to come back up, because that was you're quite restricted in time at those sort of depths. And then we spent 72 minutes coming back up.
Wow. Holy damn.
So so it's an hour and a half sort of, coming back up. Yeah. Having all the safety stops and decompression
so
stops.
they're pulling you. You don't have control of that.
You press something key.
No. You just kick your way up using your neutral buoyancy. So with a BCD on, you can put air in it at the bottom to stay neutral. Yeah. But as you ascend, the air in the BC will expand. So you actually got to let the air out. Yeah. It's the reverse to what you think. So to come up, you let air out of your gear. Yeah. And then we'll stop and wait there for 10 minutes, and stop and wait there for 20 minutes, and stop.
Wow.
And so you just...
Yeah.
And then do you feel like that narcotic, that trippy feeling?
It dissipates as you get shallower. So they should have them as a pub, and you can walk in there and say, give me 50 metres. Yeah. Great. And then you walk out and you can drive home, so it'll be a different experience. But Linda was saying, how can you do 70 minutes coming up? Yeah. I said, well, that's the same time we spent in a queue to go inside that church. So very easy to do that, just to achieve the objective. Yeah.
What's the scariest thing you've ever seen underwater?
Great question.
Yeah. Oh. Only because I'm like a chicken in the ocean, but what's the scariest thing you've seen?
And what I'd like to see is I'd like to dive with the great whites. That would be really cool. So I haven't had that pleasure yet, but one day. I'd say probably very, very close, coming up to a couple of humpback whales. Oh. So the whales swam either side of me, and
You're like this.
compared to them. And I turned around and I tried to keep up with them, thinking they're just not really doing a lot, but they're honking, man. They're cranking. So we got in quite a lot of trouble for that when we got back to Ely Beach.
Yeah.
There'd been a spotter plane over top watching the migration of these whales, and they tried to say we were hurting them or doing something wrong, but they'd swum at us. So there's a lot of rules around interaction with wildlife and stuff. But so we'd hopped in the water and the whales came to us.
Yeah.
And just came straight past. And when we tried to follow them, they were gone.
Yeah.
You know? Another interaction was in Tonga, where the humpback whales, there was 3 baby whales basically, and they wanted to play. So they were coming up all around us and under us and everything. So I had my daughter with me on that trip, and she was looking down, and I thought we'd organised the 3 whales were over there and put Caitlin in the water, and she puts her head down, and there was one directly underneath us.
Oh, wow.
So it was quite an experience, but they wanted to be there, you know.
Yeah.
They're in 150 metres of water. They could have bailed at any time, but they hung around.
And obviously they're fast enough to take off, so...
They were there for probably half an hour.
Oh, that's
And
cool.
then they decided they'd had enough, and off they went. So there's a lot of cool, really, experiences overseas and here in New Zealand where you can get those encounters, but you can't sort of set them up.
Yeah,
You know,
I think seeing yourself be so small against an animal that big really puts things into perspective for you, eh?
Absolutely, yeah. Like, they're crazy, you know, that and the fact that they travel. Like, the migration of these things is, you know, that is some big distance for what they are. You know, they cruise up there to have their pups or to feed, and then they'll go back down to the Antarctic, and then they cruise over to Australia and pop over to New Zealand, you know.
Wow.
Yeah,
Which animals really surprised you when you found out about this journey, like distances? Which one you were like, whoa, did they do that? Is that what they do? Wow.
Yeah, well, the whales, but also there's a lot of stuff now they're doing on the sharks and their migration and tagging them, and they cover some amazing ground. You know, for you know, just a fish basically, you know, big fish.
Yeah.
So that stuff really that spins me out. That how much they do travel and then there's ones that know that they go back to their same spots. You know, it's the orca whales in New Zealand eat stingray, and the ones overseas eat something else, and you know, they're localized to these areas. So
It's crazy that they travel all the way somewhere, like, because it's always like the same spot. It's like, like people know that they're going to come here in June or whatever to have their baby, so they wait for it.
Yep, and we have a lot of encounters out here where the orca have come right up the bay in November, December, January, that sort of time there where they sort of coming in, you know. And, after the lockdown in 2020, we had humpback whales breaching in the bay. You know, like that must have been really strange for all the ocean critters where there'd been no traffic.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you feel like
been...
COVID threw off a little bit of the wildlife in the ocean because there's no boats out there, like you weren't allowed out there, so they maybe
quite frustratingly we weren't allowed.
Yes.
We thought we had a good plan.
A lot of fishermen were very itchy for that month or however long.
Well, the weather was amazing that first one. And we had a plan that you'd be my safe. We got 3 boats, so you can have one boat and you have one boat, and we'll be our own safety people. But no, we couldn't play. Didn't happen.
Yeah.
But like it must have been good for the environment to have that big rest. There was a lot of things came a lot closer in, and there was a lot of sightings up the river.
Yeah.
You know, where things weren't scared. There was no traffic. There was no motor engine. You know, so that must be good, I reckon.
People always say how friendly and nice dolphins are. Can they be dangerous as well? Like, nah, it wouldn't happen.
Don't know. I've only ever the dolphins is quite funny. We've had a lot of dolphin encounters, and the dolphins will play a little game with us dumb humans, you know, and you can never quite touch one.
Yeah.
You know, they can swim right up to you, and you never quite reach it because they dart off.
Yeah.
And they've played with a lot of our students, and you can see them swimming between the bubbles of the different divers, and they get right around. We've heard stories when back in the days when you allowed scallops of the dolphins helping kick scallops out of the water.
Yeah.
You know, out of the sand.
Yeah.
So there's been a lot of stories of that sort of stuff with the dolphin, and they're just an amazing critter, right?
Very clever, aren't they?
And they just hang out. I've had one out at the Needle, a dive site out in the bay, descending down the line, and I had 4 divers behind me, and I turned around and it looked like I had 8 divers, but it was 4 divers, and then in the distance there's the bodies of these 4 dolphins that were following us.
Yeah,
So,
to see where you're going.
Cool.
and they hung out with us for probably 20 minutes on that dive, just staying just out of our reach,
Yeah.
but just hanging out, you know. So I've never had a sort of bad encounter with a dolphin, no.
Have you watched that The Octopus Teacher? Is
No,
that
I
the
haven't.
name?
Yeah.
It's a good film, man. It's
Oh,
a good documentary.
Yeah. I have.
Beautiful. It's beautiful. It's fascinating. Like, of course, you're used to it. You see it live all the time, but it's just fascinating what they did with the quality of the images.
Yeah, but amazing. Some of that stuff, and hats down to those guys that take those footages, those photos and the video and all the stuff from underwater. Like, it's a whole new art, actually, getting those right angles. And some amazing ones I've seen is a couple of photos of the crayfish shedding out of their, because they climb right out of their shells. And they have a whole new exoskeleton. So they soften up and completely climb out of their bodies.
Yeah.
And have new legs, new arms, and new everything.
Crazy.
And getting a photo of some, like, I don't know how long that takes to get in the right position and take those sort of photos.
Yeah, because they have a lot of time-lapse stuff, eh? Like,
Yeah,
do they leave it down there and come back for it?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah.
You got to, to get the right position, that might be your year's work. You know, to get
Yes.
that one photo, you know. So there's an amazing stuff now with cameras and GoPros and the technology that's coming out now.
Yeah, it'd probably be almost rare for someone not to have a GoPro strapped to them, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when we first opened, I don't know, it was all about the hunt and the gather and catch bags, nooses, hooks, cray gloves were the big things. But most of our customers or students now don't even have a catch bag. They don't own one.
Catching, yeah.
No, they're not catching. They're looking. They're taking footage. You know, they're observing, which is really, really cool.
Yeah.
So it's really good that we can be that at sort of an ambassador or an educator and help the environment, show these other people what it's like. And these kids come from out of town and learn to dive and
Yeah.
see what's going on, you know.
And even if they do dive for food, it's hardly ever often do you find that they have too much, eh? Except for, was it someone recently? They had like how many times?
45 times the
45
limit
times the limit
yeah.
of fish. And they, and a load of them were underweight, weren't they?
Yeah.
Or undersized or whatever. It was, yeah. It's
I don't
crazy.
know any statistics around here, but I believe the region, our regions are getting a lot more educated and a lot better at that. We've potted the odd person that's inside the reserve with the fishing line, and you give them a warning, or we tell them that they've got to leave. Most people are pretty receptive to that.
Yeah.
And the chance of getting pinged at the wharf is quite high.
Yeah.
If you were to get things wrong, but so I think our whole stance on it's changed a lot. I thought we might have had a big dip in divers with the not allowed to go and get scallops anymore. It hasn't really changed the numbers of divers.
Yeah.
So they're looking at different things. So they're doing other activities. So.
Do you feel like it comes with a responsibility to become a diver? Like, people should be educated about it, like you out there in the sea, you're part of an environment that is not yours, and there's so much respect. So what's your take on that?
Absolutely. Like, I know Paddy, you've got a Paddy aware section and like looking at the environment and looking at, like, there's a lot of countries out there where the waste that's just floating in the ocean and all these seabirds and turtles. There was a turtle just released yesterday that's been in Kelly Taldens for 18 months on a second visit, because they released it 2 years ago or 3 years ago, and when it came back, because it was full of plastic and bits and pieces, and that sort of stuff is really hard. But it's about having stuff there for my kids and their kids, so that I don't want to go to the museum and, remember that when there was a fish in the ocean?
Yeah.
That sort of stuff, so it's about managing that, and if we can help in any way, it's got to be good for the whole thing, right?
I think there's a documentary out not long ago. Was it called like Blackfish or something like that? And they had all the
Seaspiracy, maybe, was it?
yeah. Oh, that's the
Seaspiracy
one. Yeah,
was great,
Seaspiracy. Yeah, that was cool. Like,
So
that was a massive eye opener. You don't really know what's happening out there, like especially with the fishing industries and everything. But that was
There's a lot of things now that they're trying to go back to that rather than the mass corporate production line, and there's a lot of bycatch that gets like a third of all catch is thrown away. It's bycatch and just destroyed. And
was it snapper or something on the Aotearoa road?
Yeah.
It was that did that fall off someone's boat or did they chuck it?
it's crazy. But so they're going back to a lot of this sort of hand caught stuff now. There's we were involved in trying to set up the the Oceans Festival after the scallop thing changed, and we'd done a lot of stuff with Legacy and some sustainable fishing guys and stuff, and we were going to be doing beer battered butterfish bites, and our butterfish was going to be caught on a spear. So there's no bycatch. So they hunt. We just say how many butterfish we want, and they go out and shoot that many butterfish.
Yeah.
So there's no stuff caught in nets. There's no dredging. There's a lot of that sort of artesian sort of fishing going on now, where they're catching to order.
Yeah.
Which is way better than waste. So over the next couple of years, if we can outlaw some of these archaic sort of processes, the bottom dredge that just takes the whole bottom and kills everything, it's going to be good for everyone, I reckon.
Yeah.
Darrell, I don't know if it's your expertise or if you would know, but like I remember in that movie, I think it was Japan that had those huge nets, like kilometers of nets, catching whatever they could. Is it a thing, like those fishes coming from other countries to New Zealand, or New Zealand feed itself from its own catch? Do you know those informations?
I don't know. I believe we're pretty strong on our own resources in that sense. So as far as the seafood that we've got here, and we do a lot of work with the Coast Guard and everyone keeping out those guys, because we've got abundant fish stocks in some areas. Not saying that they're all doing well, but I'd say we'll be a lot better than a lot of places I've been. Up in the Adriatic by Croatia and Italy and all through there is no fish. It's done. The fishing's, we saw a fish.
They've run out. Like,
run out of
people have
fish.
just gone fishing.
They're a lot older than us too, as far as
Yeah.
they've been fishing there for centuries and centuries, on quite high volumes.
Yeah.
So, there is no fish left in some of those places.
So they've probably even wrecked the home for fish, and now
Yep.
they don't even want to go. That's crazy.
Yeah. So, we had Pete Bethune at a chat a while back, and he was saying that the local, he's a very big activist, and he's done a few things that countries wouldn't allow if they were to do it legally. He's gone and done some things, but a local fisherman in Africa might get 20 kilos of fish, whereas the fishing boat might get 20 tons of fish.
Yeah.
And the volumes are so different, and and a lot of that gets wasted. And how many years at 20 kilo, is that local guy's fishing? So
Yeah.
he starts targeting smaller fish because the bigger ones are gone.
Yeah.
And then he goes in and starts targeting monkeys and other animals because the fish are gone altogether. So it sort of has this massive roll-on effect. So I think we're doing quite a good job locally at that level, trying to educate people, and it's just the big corporate stuff. They need to change some of these systems, I reckon.
Yeah. I find that even with the seafood, you get like so many people I know that go diving for like Canada and everything. They literally just get a couple, like what they're going to eat today.
It's so much better fresh, right? It doesn't do so well frozen.
Exactly,
And that's our advantage. We can do that and get out and get a feed,
Yeah.
And it's so cool to be able to give one away too to someone. That's a massive reward.
Yeah. When you get a fish delivered to your door or crayfish or something.
Yeah, and that's cool. And that's really cool. So I think that if we can educate and be part of that at an entry point,
Yeah.
we've got a chance of maybe, surviving this sort of stuff. But with our dive shop where it is, we're going to be seafront soon, with the sea level rise.
Yeah, yeah. Exactly.
So we'll be able to fish off our shop itself.
Yeah. Yeah, see, and even if we do have a lockdown, you're allowed to. You're on your own property.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And then you also have the problem with the pollution, right? Because these big industries, they're not just overfishing, if that's the term, but there's also the thing with polluting the waters with chemicals. And Is that another thing that you try to keep yourself updated with?
It's a big aspect. A real big part of it is the dumping of waste and rubbish and, and going into the rivers and runoffs and stuff, So that's a whole project in itself. The guys have spent many years working through that to manage those steps. Like the rubbish is a big one. I know in some of the Fijian islands, the rubbish dump is the beach on low tide. You put all the rubbish there, by high tide it's gone.
Yeah.
So where does it go? It goes into this big garbage patch in the middle of the ocean. And
what is that place? What is that island that concentrates?
There's an area in the middle there that all the tides go and meet and there's a lot of people trying to recycle stuff and reuse it, but it's just the cost isn't quite there yet, to make it work.
Is that the big famous one that it became like an island of plastic? I don't know where in the world that there's an island of plastic apparently of rubbish that it concentrates there because of the moves.
Yeah,
There's something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know about if it's an island, but there's masses of. There is a
Wow.
big concentration. The Pacific Garbage Patch or something. I think they call.
Have you been to a place that it was just not nice to dive, or you were studying or doing something that you actually had to deal with some like, oh, I'm not sure if I want to go in the water, or you didn't get that far?
Yeah, absolutely. When I did my course directors training up in Borneo in Malaysia, all the way along their coastlines, you know, there's this rubbish, and it's a lot of the cheaper products are individually wrapped in plastic and individually packaged, and it just gets thrown in the ocean.
Yeah.
And then that stuff just washes around. Like some dives I've been on, there's so much floating stuff in the water that it's, you know, and if everyone does their bit.
Do you feel obliged to like lean over and
Oh,
chuck
look,
it in?
we always try to cleaning
Yeah.
up stuff when you see it, and we've been really lucky. We do beach cleanups at Aotearoa and on the main beach and at the wharf, and there's not actually that much rubbish in the ocean, right?
Yeah.
We're very lucky. We get more rubbish found along the sides of the road of the beach
Yeah.
than in the ocean. So that's a good thing for us up here. I believe we're pretty clean in that sense. But some of these places, yeah, it's just really hard, and the cost of the better products that don't have that don't match, right? We had a group up in the Philippines a while ago, and one of the places there, they were recycling the plastic and then grinding it down and then 3D printing it into bowls and plates and stuff, which was a cool system, but
Yeah.
their plates were too expensive than the
exactly.
cheap Chinese one off. So, you know, it didn't equate in a financial sense.
Yeah.
So that's just trying to get that balance right now with the eco holidays and getting all those sort of things working right.
When
And-
you get groups through, like into the shop, do they always ask like where to dive, where not to dive?
Yep.
Like, so where's somewhere that you would tell people not to dive? And then after the show, you can tell us your spots for fishing.
Yeah, so I haven't got the patience for fishing, so you're right there. So
or your spot for diving. Then.
It's more the other way around. So it's more about where to go rather than
What to
what to avoid. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of places, and they all differ in what you want to see. Like wreck diving's an amazing experience, where there's all these shipwrecks and they're just sitting. They shouldn't be there. They're sitting on the bottom, like it's quite foreign, and a lot of stuff's grown on that, and it's quite a cool dive. But then some people don't like that aspect. They like the pretty coral gardens or the reefs, or like Nile, for example, has all these big stalactites and stalagmites and big cave systems and unreal visibility.
Yeah.
So it's phenomenal diving there for that aspect. But then in, say, Truck Lagoon in Micronesia, they have all these wrecks of these Japanese boats and planes and stuff from World War II.
Yeah.
And that's phenomenal as far as a dive. It's 28 degrees in the water. It's sort of 30-metre visibility.
Yeah.
And you're seeing all these different things on the bottom that sort of shouldn't be there.
That's cool.
But that in itself is going to eventually create a hazard, because they're all degrading, and at some point someone has to
Something's
take.
going to slip.
Yep. So it's a real hard one to pick one favourite sort of spot, but I like them all. I just love. My biggest part now, I think, is seeing everyone else's expressions when they go diving
Yeah.
and see their first starfish or see their little snapper. Or we had some kids in Gemstone Bay the other day, and the blue cod were swimming right up to their masks, and and that was cool, right? And they came back just tripping. They were absolutely buzzing, and they didn't have any mobile phones or any data or anything, right?
Yeah.
So they were doing old school,
They had to describe it to
real
everyone.
stuff,
Yeah,
right?
it's cool.
So that's pretty cool, I reckon.
Yeah, that's cool.
Darrell, how is the thing with the buffalo, the ship? Is it a place that you can dive and have a look? And if you don't mind, because some people are from overseas or some people don't know what I'm talking about, can you just explain what the buffalo ship is and if it's possible to go there?
So the Buffalo sunk, I'm guessing 1840, 1850.
We can check the dates, but yeah.
It was parked at Cook's Beach, and there was a big storm, and it broke its moorings and washed up on the beach and got nailed.
So they were coming to pretty much.
Yeah, they were. It was a transport sort of ship. They'd been to Australia, I think, and they were going back to England, dropping off supplies. And then it broke and got wrecked on Buffalo Beach, and that's where the name comes from. But the wreck itself is in 3 or 4 meters of water right on the surf line.
Yeah.
So a couple of times a year, you'll get some amazing footage of it when it's crystal clear. And I know Mark off the Glass Bottom Boat, they had some wicked footage under their boat one day where you could see it over on the glass bottom, and that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And some of my staff have snorkeled it. It's more of a snorkel than a scuba dive as such, but it's more of a cross section of the boat now. So if you look at it from the sky, you can see the shape of the boat and all the ribs and bits and pieces. But a lot of the boat's gone. Being timber, it's sort of rotted away, or bits get washed up on storms.
Yeah, as I say, wasn't there something washed up not long ago, like the last big storm we had? They had
it'd be
something wash up. Yeah.
So we've got some archaeologist guys that come into the shop, and they did a project just the end of last year where they went out and did some surveying of the wreck, and had a whole pile of volunteers go in and do some work to map it more precisely. But I believe back in the 60s there was some tsunamis where the water was going out towards Central Island, and they were going out on their tractors, the old locals, and pulling bits off the wreck.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
the water
far
was
out.
disappearing out. So that was quite crazy. But it's when we first opened the store here, my business partner at the time thought he could market that as one of our dive sites, this Buffalo Wreck Dive.
Yeah.
But it's it's right on the surf line, and you might get 2 days a year that you could dive snorkel it.
Yeah.
So it's not really suitable, but it's a cool dive. It's a cool spot.
Have you done it?
So I've snorkeled over it and seen, you look at the boat, and I like looking at that and then looking at the history that shows how it came and how we got our name. And
Look at that.
Oh, yeah, it's cool.
yeah, that's it there. Yeah. So that's what you can see. From the surface. So the drone stuff now is amazing, but it is basically a flat cross section. Might raise up 0.5 meter maybe, or a few hundred mil off the ground.
So for the people who are listening to this show, Taylor just found a cool picture, probably like a drone or something where you can see pretty much the structure, I would say.
It's on the
of
Magri
boat.
Bay Museum.
And for the people, who are keen to see that, is the Magri Bay Museum website. We actually have to get in touch with them, to come to the show. That's amazing.
That'd be cool.
That was these guys last year doing their project in 21. Yeah.
Is it something you put your hand up when they're asking for volunteers to
Oh,
dive? Are
feel
you
hard.
like, I
Cool.
will?
Absolutely. We don't. We provided a lot of the equipment for them to use and help out in that way. It's the same guys that have just been diving down in the bottom of Fjordland recently, and they found some ships down there too that they've been hunting out as well. So it's really, he was very passionate about his pieces of timber.
It's history. Yes. Darrell, this is an amazing chat, man. As we talk, new things come to my mind, and I just want to go back a little bit to the thing that we were talking about, the nets and like protecting the seas. I remember in that movie they were talking about the reefs, how important they are, and like we're damaging them and not understanding. What's the importance of keeping the reefs safe for our seas?
The reef system's like the rainforest of the ocean, like it supports 30% of the fish life come out of these reefs and support all the little fish feed off the bigger fish, and everything sort of sustains itself. And the coral reefs itself, they're producing, and they also like the rainforest of the ocean. So if we're killing these things off, some of it's happening naturally with the warming and the bleaching of some of these stuff. So it's very hard in that sense. But if we can control a little bit of it, I know in Australia they're doing big projects where they're closing off areas of the Great Barrier Reef to work on it. There's ways of trying to reproduce coral and grow stuff. Yep. It takes us 2 seconds to smash a piece off that takes 300 years to grow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's a long process to cycle that, to fix that. I know when they first started doing trips over there in the 50s and 60s, they would give you reef shoes, and you would just walk all over the reefs on low tide and have a look at the little fish in the pools. And this was just destroying the reefs.
Yeah.
But that's what it was back then when the tourism
didn't have information enough.
they didn't know, right? So that's all changed. There used to be a lot of that sort of activity went on as the tide went down, and it would create all these beautiful fish pools with all these really rare and crazy coloured fish, right? So everyone just walks around the reef and has a look. But that's gone, and they're adjusting their processes. So hopefully we can educate enough to sustain some of it anyway.
Yeah.
Nowadays, there's so much talk about the sea rise. levels, right? Some people, well, I think no one can say that it's not happening, right? We can see that it's happening. I think the argument is usually, oh, this is happening because of the earth and that's what's happening, and things are changing. It's a natural process. And some other people will say, no, we're causing it. We're making it happen, and that's not good. Do you have a take on that? And you don't have to answer, but just because you are out there, you've been seeing these changes for so many years. So like, even if you don't want to get in the discussion, but like, you can see it, right? So
do you want to see if your wife's commenting at all before you start talking? Or are we good?
That's all right. I can look after myself. But no, I do believe, look, something's going on. The waters are warming up. There's different stuff going on. It's affecting everything. So part of that's our population base. There's all sorts of things. I drive a diesel truck.
Yeah.
And I can't see myself getting in a little electric thing very quickly in a hurry, right? So there's certain things we can change, and certain things I think we've got to look at the bigger picture on. I also love meat, right? So they're big things, dairy at the moment, and a lot of my customers are farmers, and I love their product. So we've got to work all that out as well. But I believe we're on the right path, and looking at least we're aware of it.
yes.
10, 15 years ago, you were a total freak if you had these ideas. Now it's sort of mainstream, right? So I think we're on the right track. Whether we're fast enough, who knows, But everyone wants to live by the ocean, and I want to live by the ocean too, right? So if I can't afford a house on the beach, buy one back, and one day it'll be a beachfront, right?
Yeah.
that's the theory. But there's always options, but I don't know. It is something that we need to look at and consider, and take that moment. If we can do our little piece, pick up some of that rubbish, recycle. Drive a car, shared pool stuff, walk rather than drive. If we can do our little bit, the electric stuff's happening, but how much can we do?
Yeah.
If as a country, if we do a little bit, and everyone does a little bit,
should be.
It's got to help, right?
Yeah. And I feel like that's the problem. Sometimes people are just too pessimist. It's kind of like, oh, but it's ruins anyway, and you're like, well, each little thing helps so much. Like, it's the everyday things that will actually
absolutely
make
it's
a
ruined
big
anyway.
change,
I must
right?
carry on ruining it. It's like, no, you can just stop.
No, but look, and you look at that, like, there's been a lot of change in the last 10, 15, 20 years, especially with social media and the way things have been shown. Like, I say, 10 years ago, no one even knew about this stuff, and it was some crackpot dude with a tin hat on that was talking about it. Now it's sort of a bit more mainstream, and more people are aware of it, and if everyone can do their little bit and think about stuff, the recycling, the waste.
If you were worried about the nature, you're a hippie. It was crazy.
It was real. It was a really, really staunch sort of crazy group over there. Yeah. That was my opinion anyway, and now it's mainstream. So.
And it's something with the generations as well, right? I think when you are a child and you get some of that information, it makes sense that you will grow and act on it. Like you were saying, 15 years ago, like there was the reef walk. And nowadays, if you tell a teenager that, they will say, what the fuck? What were we doing? So I think what's happening now, with the rubbish, the plastic, for these children will be much more common in 10 years. We're like, nah, look what we're doing. Like, look at what mom and dad were doing 15 years ago. That was ridiculous.
They were making the reef.
Yeah, so trusting that the generations.
But that's still history, right? So there's no point trying to erase that stuff and destroy it and take it away.
Leave it, carry on.
Leave it there. Some of the monuments and some of these things, all the different things that have gone on in the past, that's happened.
Yeah.
You can't change it, right? Exactly. We can change the future, and let's work with that rather than
Yeah.
Like, I've got my favourite gollywog toy, but you can't even say that anymore, can you?
You can't, no.
So there's all sorts of things that have happened, but that was how it was.
Yeah.
And as you said, it marked a time in history, and then you're like, well, this was happening, not happening anymore.
So we've fixed
change.
that. And you look in 20 years, 50 years time, they'll be looking back at now thinking, what did we do? So it is very interesting. We teach a lot of our students about this stuff, and I'm a digital immigrant, right? Because it wasn't around but the kids now they're residents, right? They were grown up with it.
They wouldn't know how to survive without it now.
No.
Yeah.
So So it's a whole. If we've got to harness that medium, and this is one of them.
That's right. Yeah. Do you feel like the Maori teachings, they're coming more to light nowadays because there's this connection with nature that it seemed to be a bit like fauna, but it's just who we are. We've been connected with nature for years, but now like there's this thing with like bringing it to the forefront. Do you think that's
Oh, absolutely, and it's an awareness thing too, right? And understanding our culture and our background, and my family on both sides, of mum and dad's side, have been in New Zealand since the 1840s. Wow. They were very early white babies born in New Zealand,
Yeah.
But and we've moved into this environment, and I think we need to appreciate where New Zealand's come from.
Definitely.
If you compare it to some of the other countries overseas, they've, I was working in a pub in England that was from the 15th century or something,
Yeah.
And New Zealand didn't even exist then, so there's a lot of change.
Yeah.
And we need to absorb our culture and be part of it, really,
And that's a beautiful thing that I appreciate so much in New Zealand. Like there's a movement right now of bringing the culture to the forefront and it's explaining how important it is. Like in Brazil, like we're trying to eliminate the indigenous teachings and cultures and everything. And you're like, why? Like why are we doing this?
Yeah, is it indigenous stuff in Brazil? Like
Brazil was probably one of the biggest countries, like in numbers of indigenous populations and different tribes and people. But
cool.
yeah, and it's a beautiful, most of them, a beautiful kind of like red-ish color skin, like the indigenous people from Brazil. But like, again, there's this thing with like not valuing that or trying to bring them to like a modern lifestyle. I understand supporting a better lifestyle for whoever is in a country. I understand that, but you should never ignore and try to eliminate them from history.
It's quite funny actually. We're going back to a lot of those ways by hand line catching stuff and maintaining like the old school ways that they lived. These people lived by when they were here many years ago.
That's right.
And reverting back to a lot of those principles, right?
Yeah.
And if something goes wrong with the boat, how good it is to look at the stars and have an idea of where you are, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It makes sense.
That technology, right? We need to harness what's going on around us, but also think about the ways we can do it passively, maybe, or with less machinery.
Yeah.
Because that's the stuff that's making all the potentially some of our issues. But so, I'm in the middle there somewhere. If I can do my little bit.
Yeah, definitely.
But then still smoke, have my diesel truck and my bits and pieces, so it's a balance.
I think we're going towards that, because we all agree that it's cool to have access to fast cars, like that take us far. It's nice to have a cell phone that connects us, but I think we realized we can do it, maybe not in the most sustainable way. And now I hope that the new generation gets into that issue. Can we make all these things work in a more sustainable way? So I have my hopes like pretty high that we'll get there.
The other issue is the generation's getting weaker though, I reckon.
When you mean
they don't
weaker,
play, they don't play outside, they don't do it.
That is true.
It's sitting there, they'll all have sore thumbs by the time they're too old, and eyes will be blind,
or have glasses.
Yeah, there's a great book called Breath because I want to talk about breath because it's such an important thing for you guys and for everybody. That he went to France because France it's full of it's like a cemetery, like below the grounds, like they had so many battles and wars there. So like there are places that you can go and it's kind of like a maze, a labyrinth of skulls and so a lot of Gothic people and punks, whatever, like they gather there. It's not legal, but he went there to study those skulls because he talks about how bad it is to breathe through your mouth. Like, of course, if it's fitting a purpose, like, so if you have to, like if you're diving and you have to, it makes sense. But like when you're during the day, it makes much more sense to breathe through your nose. And there's a whole study that he does on that. So he goes to these places from years ago where you can find these cows and he studies that. And he says like how the way that we live now, our whole structure is changing, you know, like it's shrinking, and then like we're not breathing that efficiently anymore, which means that our bodies are getting weaker. So fantastic what you're bringing up, because the way that we're relating to things and curving our bodies and not moving as much, it's really making us weaker.
Just appreciate some of these things, right? And then I don't know what's going to happen. Everyone needs more medical supplies now. Back in the day, they didn't have anything, but they seem to live all right.
That's right.
Now we've got more issues, we've got more ailments, there's more diseases because we've just found them. They were probably around before, but you just had to harden up. Yeah. You know, like there's a lot of some of that stuff. I don't know if we're too weak now accepting some of these things. That's my sort of suck it up.
How long can you hold your breath for?
Oh yeah.
So me, I'm good for a couple of minutes probably. I'm not the best at some of it, but some of these guys can do, you know, a long time, and it's a skill that you train yourself to do. The William Trubridges and stuff that set their world records for going 100 and something meters, you know, on one breath.
Yeah.
They're freaks, right? But they fully train themselves to do that. So.
And it shows that we can.
Absolutely.
That's the beauty of it, right?
There's tribes overseas somewhere that have learnt to use their air better, and they walk around on the bottom and collect all their seafood, and they've been doing it for centuries, and they can spend minutes and minutes underwater, whereas most of us can't, because as a species,
30 seconds tops.
we're pretty useless, right?
Yeah.
If it's too hard, what do? We get a car.
Yeah.
If it's too cold, we put a jersey on. You know, we don't change ourselves. We try to change the environment around us.
Yeah.
So that's where we're diving or free diving. We've got the resource. Yeah. We just don't use it. And an adult set of lungs is about 6 litres, and we use about 1.5 litres. Wow. So we got a 4.5. Most people have about 4.5 litres of just sitting there. So when you're free diving, you're starting to push into those boundaries, and our mind is telling us we can't. And then we're overlooking, you know, we're overruling those things, and we're learning to breathe longer and deeper.
Fantastic.
So that's the crazy part. Like, you know, we've got it, but we just don't, all of us, but we just don't use it.
Have you been to a situation where being able to hold your breath came handy?
Oh, back in the days.
Linda! Get rid of the headphones. Don't listen to this part.
Write a comment.
Back in the days of the old big cray hunting things, when you're in a bit of a crack and you've got to work out how to get out of this hole before your air runs out. You take a moment, but it is something to consider. It's definitely something to consider, and having all the safety gear now to do those exercises. We do paddy freedive training and stuff at the shop, and Ryan and Craig are really good as our freedive instructors. And it's about that comfort and knowing how to handle your own bodies. Yeah. And utilising and relaxing and, you know, using what we have. You know, harnessing our abilities. And it's an exercise you get better at during a day. Because when you're at the bottom and you're down there, you're trying to push that moment, you might get 35 seconds. And then next time you get 45 seconds and you're actually getting better. Whereas if you did a marathon and then did another marathon, your second one's not, I would imagine, not going to be as good.
Yeah,
that's right.
So it's a quite a cool thing just to learn how to breathe. I know they use it in a lot of other activities, yoga and all sorts of other stuff. It's that breathing mentality, and as you're saying, breathing in and out your mouth and nose and.
Yep. Wim Hof now it's quite trendy, right? A lot of people following. Have you heard about Wim Hof, the Iceman, the Dutch guy? Who he broke a lot of records going into like very, very cold temperatures. And I think, if you don't mind getting his records, I think he held his breath for like a very long time, and he swam in one of those icy places. Like, but he just went on, and he's got this thing with.
Is it when they swim from one hole and pop at the other?
Yeah, but like he didn't stop. He was just fantastic, like the distance, and he, because he was recovering from depression. I think his wife passed, and then he got into depression, and he got into the yoga. Yeah. Because it is all yoga. Oh, there you go. Wim Hof,
52,
human icicle, a man with incredible tolerance for cold. He holds the Guinness World Record for sitting in an ice bath for 1 hour, 52 minutes and 42 seconds.
It's amazing what our bodies can handle if we train them, right?
And the beauty about this guy, the coolest thing, is that he's so humble, and he tells, if I can do it, you can do it. And he teaches how to warm up your body through breathing.
Yeah.
You know, and it makes sense, right? As you said, we rely on the jersey, we rely on the jackets, but like if you get your mindset right and your breathing is right, you actually get yourself warm.
Oh, it's amazing if what we have in all of us that we don't use. There's a movie called, I think it's The Last Breath. It's on
Netflix.
About a diver up in the North Sea that should be dead, you know, and what went through this sort of real life story of him running out of air and then bringing him back, because of the conditions and the water temperature and everything else, where everything shuts down, our bodies shut down our core and just run just what it needs to run. Yeah. And slowly, you know, to try and keep us alive. Yeah. There's been cases of kids drown in cold water and they've been pulled out and, you know, brought back to life, which is really amazing. So our reflexes that tell us to do these things.
And even the healing properties, like we don't have to go back there, but like, and I hope I'm not too ignorant about the thing, but like there was something that he did as well. Someone put some kind of like virus or something on him, and he fought through breathing, which is fantastic, by alkalining his body. Yeah, you know, through breath. Yeah. So because that's another thing he says, like you can heal a lot of things by like having the right mindset and breathing properly. Yeah, crazy.
But see, that stuff's still a bit a bit radical at the moment, right? But you imagine in a couple of years' time that a lot of these things we've become mainstream, you know. Yeah.
Hopefully.
Where a lot of the stuff, we're working on trying to make it sustainable and use what we have, because we can't just keep burning resources, right?
That's right.
So if you can get back into your free diving, you can do that. We're sustainably catching our fish. We're living, and theoretically we might have, you know, good quality of life. So then everyone else's mental states improve and everything goes good. So
does Linda dive as well?
She initially was called a lagoon sun diver. So on that perfect day in that perfect condition on that beautiful spot,
warm country.
Yeah. No. So that was my problem, because we had Caitlin, so that meant she was very busy for a few years, you know, breeding our next generation of divers. So she didn't do too much diving, but now she's back into it, and she loves the water. So she came out with us last weekend and went for a couple of dives, and that was pretty cool. So it's something I got her into, and she tried to get me into snowboarding, but I'm a bit too unco for that. So I can ski, but the snowboard was painful. Yeah.
So you mentioned the honeymoon, but did you guys choose a cool spot to get married? Was there any diving or swimming involved with the wedding?
Yeah. So we've been married 15 years now, and actually just recently, in April, it came up as a thing. We got married on the corner on the reserve there, the point.
Oh yeah.
And me and my best man scubaed up to the wedding like James Bond, and came up the marina with our dry suits on, and pulled our dry suits off and put our sunnies back on, flicked the hair. So we didn't have a lot of hairdo cost, right? So it wasn't an issue.
That's cool though.
Super cool.
And then Linda came in on our dive boat and came up the fuel jetty. But she's still pissed off now that everyone talks about the groom's entrance. So it's not about the bride anymore. Yeah. It's about me coming in. But so none of the guests knew we were coming other than my staff. And we ninjaed across the marina and climbed up and took all our gear off. And it was pretty, you know, had our suits underneath. Yeah. So that was pretty cool.
Nice. That's a great story.
Yeah. So that was an interesting one. And it's there's been a few people who've been married underwater. They've done things with mics and comms and all sorts of things. So we thought about doing that as a way of earning some revenue, because then all our guests would have to be certified. So I'd have to train them first. Yeah. So we could get some money to fund the honeymoon, you see. But it didn't quite work out that way. But no, that was a good day.
Was that any like a story of someone who came to you guys asking for something weird? You were like, nah, I don't think we can do that. Yeah, because I don't know. Here, from all these years of working on the water?
I just love that whole environment and the expression you get from everyone that tries it, from all walks of life. What I like here is we've been here 18 years now, and the kids are now having kids, coming to dive, you know, so that I know we get the same customers back every summer.
Cool.
And they come every once a month, and he comes sort of certain times a year. So that's quite cool, and sharing those experiences now is really cool. So haven't had any crazy ones in there. We've had a few ones that were very natural. Craig will kill me for this one, but he had a young laddie on the boat that was maybe shouldn't have been natural. And when she needed some help getting out of her wetsuit.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, she should have had stuff on underneath the wetsuit. But some people are just not appropriate, is my opinion, you know, to do that. Some people it's okay. But that was a surprise that I don't think he'll ever forget that day on the boat.
Whoa.
Great. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Funny, Taylor, I don't know, like you don't have to go for it, but I just remember something. When Taylor and I graduated, we studied social communications, and we produced a film, like to finish the course. And our friends had this idea of filling up a bathroom with water, because there was a character, Marmita Jimudu. It's too hard maybe to find that scene, but anyway. One of the characters, he would wear, how do you call the old school?
Oh, the diver's helmet, the bell,
divers,
yeah.
Yeah, the old school one. And he was like, man, we should fill up this bathroom with water. And we're like, man, how are we going to do that?
How?
But anyway, instead of doing that, we set up a bathroom in a swimming pool. And the scene is pretty cool. Yeah. So that's what I was thinking, like maybe something involving productions or film, because you see amazing things, like in video clips and people doing cool stuff.
Yeah, we've always thought about producing a classroom under there and have some desks and a whiteboard, you know, and have all the students in their scuba gear and writing on thing. But there is a place I think it's in Belgium actually, that has the deepest dive pool, and it's 40 meters deep, it's got rooms, and there's cars, and there's like a little shopping centre and all that sort of stuff in this
in
pool.
Belgium.
Yeah,
That's
massive dive pool, and they do all sorts of different training in there, you know. So probably a little bit hard for us to set one of those up here in Whitianga, but
What's the like coolest project you've ever been a part of? Has it been anything similar to that, like for a movie or?
Yeah, we've done. We've helped out with a few different bits and pieces. We had the guys from Discovery on the boat just recently doing some programs for the Parker Shrubble, one of the Gold Dude series.
Yeah,
we've done quite a few of those little things. One I found was really interesting was a TV ad for a Toyota car that was being produced in Australia.
Yeah,
and they hooned around the whole Coromandel, and they had these base jumpers that were jumping off these cliffs, coming down and landing in the ocean, and the whole thing was done live, but the ocean was too dirty, so they filmed the splash in our swimming pool.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
And the amount of effort that went into this, I don't know, half a nanosecond piece of the ad was just phenomenal. I was just amazed at the budget some of these guys have for their productions, you know.
Wow, fantastic.
We must have had, when I rang Linda and said there's a few guys going to come around and do this ad in the backyard.
Just practicing the splash at our pool.
Just a splash in our pool, right? They must have had 80 people in the yard, and they had the film guys and the light guys and the sound. They made a big grandstand thing for them to jump off, and they put the blue screen up, and they had the coffee cart on the neighbourhood thing, and they had the power source to power all these things. And one of our neighbours, she came home and didn't work out what the hell had just gone on in our little street where there's just people everywhere. So they joined them for lunch and had comfort of duck for lunch along the reserve.
Wow,
Like they had just so much for this pissy nanosecond part of the TV ad, you know?
Yeah.
So some of those productions, there's a lot of work that goes in behind the scenes to make the stuff work. And that's what I thought was quite impressive, you know, the effort but these guys go to produce some of the stuff.
Look good.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I still have a bunch of questions and cool things that we want to talk about, but I'm just going to go through our chat because it's pumping again tonight, which is pretty cool. So first of all, thank you very much for our audience for jumping on the live chat and asking questions. If you have a question, now is the time. So people are just saying like, oh, well, blah, blah, blah. Darrell knows the script. That's perfect. Blah, blah, blah. I would love to visit Egypt one day. I love all things Egyptian, which is cool. Lauren Bird says, hi, Uncle Darrell. Liking this video in 3, 2, 1. Thanks, Robo4. Thanks for liking the video. Matt, I think it was when we were talking about the environment. He says we have such an amazing planet and we are ruining it. We are literally shitting on our own doorsteps. Thanks for ALTBAYS for continuing to highlight these issues. Our pleasure. It's great to have Darrell bringing, some truth, because it's easy for people to say what they think, but you were there, you've seen things. So thank you. Coral Gardens is my jam. Relaxing, just chilling. That's RT. Thanks, RT. Okay, now there's a question. Darrell, I have always fancied diving, in particular wreck and cave diving. I can sometimes feel a little claustrophobic. Can this be an issue?
Absolutely. So it can be, but it's just learning to deal with that environment where you have your mask on and everything's can feel a bit closed in. So it's just getting comfortable in your environment and your settings first. Once you learn to dive and you understand that all the equipment's going to work and you understand that you can exit if you need to or there's ways out, often you become more comfortable anyway, and the claustrophobic aspect can disappear. So it's a strange sensation having a mask on your face with air in it and then having water around you. But because all our life we've been told when we go in the water we hold our breath, we can't stay there, we can't breathe. Now we're breaking all the rules, so we're breathing underwater. So getting those concepts in your mind first, then enhancing your dive locations to, like the shipwrecks are an amazing experience. There's a beautiful wreck up north, the Canterbury, and you dive and you can swim into the bridge and sort of drive the ship, so to speak. But it's got a lot of exit points all the way around, so you know that you could get out. And then there's a lot of technical diving goes on before you sort of start doing the cave stuff. All the recreational diving we do, we can just bail at any time, pretty much. We can say, no, I've had enough, and we can do our safety stop and leave. Whereas if you're an hour into a cave and you decide you've had enough, you've got to go back the hour to get out of the cave. So there's a lot more involved in that sort of diving, like you saw that stuff in overseas a couple of years ago, and there was those incident in that getting those soccer team out of those caves.
Oh man.
But a lot of training goes into that aspect of it, and it's a whole different ball game, the fully technical side of it, that aspect. But the big part is backing your equipment and having the confidence that once you know that everything works and you have redundant sources of equipment, you have spare air, you have spare masks, spare tanks. That sort of helps a lot of those sort of mind things about the claustrophobicness.
Fantastic. Have you went diving, Christine? Have you done it before?
No, because ocean freaks me out a little bit. But also the claustrophobic thing that, like you said, I got to get over it. But done snorkeling.
Big thing for a lot of people is the sharks, right? They think, one of the most common questions we get from anyone is, what about sharks? Like, I'd love to see more sharks. It'd be so cool. But you just don't see them. We make all these artificial noises with our regulators, and it's like sort of Darth Vader nearly, and they would come past you if you had the opportunity, if they had nowhere else to go. So there's a couple of places where you can go and see the great whites, or that's sort of my bucket list, to go and have a look at them and have a dive with them, That'd be quite cool. But that is one of our biggest, factors. It was quite interesting when Jaws came out. The movie Jaws, there was a worldwide dip in certifications, and it's a real pronounced. The line from the PADI certifications was just ticking like this, and then there's one catastrophic event, which was when Jaws was released that no one wanted to dive. It was really interesting that they could
not safe in the water.
Pinpoint this one thing in history and go back and see it was when Jaws was released.
And such a shame, of course, a piece of art, fantastic movie, but like such a shame how humans fear sharks, but actually we kill so many sharks per year. It's just ridiculous, the numbers, right? And if you compare, like, sharks don't even kill as many humans.
So we're doing a trip up to Benga Lagoon in Fiji next July. There's space available if anyone's interested. But where we can dive with the sharks there, and the Fijians have now learnt that they make far more money out of keeping the shark alive than the $1,200 they used to get for the parts of the shark. So it's a little bit artificial, the process, because they feed them and they do different things, but they're all alive now, and they're still living, and it's sustaining their whole village. So rather than getting the money once, they get the money, You know,
Every visit.
every visit. So
Yeah.
so that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
There is a lot of things like that are going around that I don't know if you could think it's bad for the animal, but it's the same with the whale sharks in some countries overseas. There's places where you can dive with a whale shark and they've fed it. But those guys used to be the fishermen killing them. So now, you know, it's pretty cool. There's a place in the Philippines where they do that, and there's a few other places around the world as well, so that's been pretty cool that they've thought about ways that the best, I don't know, non-invasive way of sort of looking after the animals and still earning a living.
Yeah.
Because you got to think about, you can't just save everything. People still need to work and still need to earn money doing certain things, right? So
Yeah.
we've got to try and find a balance, I
Yeah.
suppose, in some of those things.
Fantastic. I have a cool comment here from Dives on Whitianga. Yes, your wife is listening. Thanks, Linda, for supporting our show. That's fantastic. So Matt found the word that I was looking for. Yes, the Paris catacombs. Thanks, my man. That's exactly what I was talking about. And Artie says, yes, talking about the book Breath again. Fascinating. It is fascinating. It is a great book. So if you guys are keen to really spend some good time learning something new, Breath by James Nestor. Let me see. Darrell, how long would it take for a noob in the sea to become a dive instructor?
So you want someone learning to dive? So they need to have dived for at least 6 months before they can to do their instructor training. So if they've done their open water course and do their advanced course and their rescue and there's 4 or 5 steps along the way, they need to have 100 scuba dives as well. So there's 4 on the open water course, there's 5 on the advanced, there's a couple on the rescue course, and then you need to have 60 or 70 dives, just going out there and diving and getting that experience. And then you can do all the courses along the way as well. But the minimum timeline is 6 months from when you first learnt to dive to when you could sit your instructor course. So we do a year-long program that takes you from open water diver right the way through to instructor program. So they start in February and finish in December. And we've now got graduates working all over the world that have done these programs, and it's really quite rewarding seeing them come back or hearing different stories about where these students are. And it's been interesting over the last couple of years, especially with what's been happening. But a lot of those guys have still got work and they're still working in the industry still, which is really, really cool.
Yeah. What's some advice you'd give to someone who wants to start out?
So the big thing I find is what we offer is to come and have a go first before you invest anything in it. If you're looking at doing it as a career, come and have a dive and do your open water ticket as a recreation, as a hobby first, and then join onto a course, or come and do a Discover Scuba Dive with us and then decide, rather than, I know some places people start these courses and then go, well, actually, I don't actually enjoy it.
Yeah.
So I'd rather have the right people doing it than have too many people doing it that didn't want to be there, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So it's always a balance in that sense. But there's definitely work out there, and there's going to be more and more work now with things wanting to be more hand harvested and hand caught. The aquaculture industry can grow big in New Zealand. The safety side of things with moorings, if you work down that path, the dive shop sector, the aquarium side of things, there's a lot of work in a lot of these different areas that involve safety divers. The film industry is huge as far as that goes. So it's not just working in the dive shop sort of thing. So, but saying that, I've been doing it for 25 years now, and I still love going to work.
Yeah.
Nice.
Cool.
I want to touch that in a bit more in the career and what you guys do here in Whitianga. So just a quick story. There was I used to live by the beach, Buffalo Beach Road, and I was looking for a flatmate, and then I get this text from this 17-year-old. Should I say kid? I called him kid for years, and I still do. And then it was Jackson Green. And he sent me a text, man, I'm coming to Whitianga for 1 year for the dive course. Brilliant. One of the coolest guys that I ever met. But I remember he came and there was this not too tall fence that we had in front of the property. And I'm waiting. I was like, yeah, I don't know, 17 years old. Sounds about right. I think I can handle that. I think I was 25 at the time. And then he said, "No, I'm coming to have a look at the bedroom." So I'm waiting, and then I look at the fence, and I can see this car parking and a mohawk. And I'm like, whoa, there you go. Who is coming to live in my house? But it was actually not him, it was his father.
Oh, shit.
So his father brought him, and like this 17-year-old like kid. And I'm like, hey man, how's it going? He's like, yeah, I'm coming for the dive course. And I didn't even know. I was like, oh really? I was like, yeah, the dive zone. And then I started to pay more attention to it. And he was, every weekend he was going for something cool. Like he was at cool places and spending like 2-3 days on a boat and like learning new things, and he would tell me all this stuff, and I'm like, man, that sounds like a cool mission, you know. And then I started to understand how important it is what you guys are doing. So just tell us a little bit more, Darrell, about like how this beautiful thing that it's just great to have on your sleeve as a dive instructor can actually be a sustainable career, and like and if you don't mind, like money-wise as well, like what are the paths that you can go to that nowadays are quite good?
So there's a lot of opportunity in the industry. The tourism sector's obviously coming back now, and it's been hammered a little bit last couple of years. But there's a lot of opportunity out there to dive and to get in and go diving. Education's a big part of it with school kids, and there's always more kids coming through, so they're wanting to do it as part of their outdoor ed. It's a real good way of using your maths and your science in a real-time experience. Physics, we use a lot of physics, and I didn't even like science at school. And, you know, a lot of these gas laws and bits and pieces are really interesting now. So there's a lot of learning along the way. It's sort of more than a hobby, I suppose, for a lot of our guys. And when we go through and we spend a year doing all these different dive experiences, to get them so that at the end of the year they're very, very competent and ready to go into the workforce. So Jackson, for example, he would have been, it's a few years ago now, eh?
7 maybe, 6 or 7, I would say.
So he came down here, and our biggest advantage, I think, is a lot of it's our region and the environment here, the beautiful water, the islands and all that stuff that makes it so accessible for our divers to get out and get diving. And then also Whitianga is a weekend town. So our courses are Monday to Thursday, and the kids get a lot of opportunity to work Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Yeah. Because that's when the work is in town. So that helps sort of fund things and do it. But and we've got guys now working SA all over the world, and it's really rewarding seeing them come back. Jackson's now working in Auckland, a dive shop in Auckland. There's got guys working in the wholesale aspect, selling the dive gear. We've got guys working at Kelly Talton's in Auckland, looking after the fish in there and doing the projects that they do in the background, saving these, like this turtle I was talking about earlier, and things like that. So we've got guys working over in Cairns. But another area where we've had guys go off and do the commercial diving. So there's opportunity for some really big money if you get into the commercial aspect of things. Some of the guys are on $600-800 a day doing, you know, which is fairly good average income for going diving.
How much did you say?
Yeah,
$600-700 a day.
$800 a day doing commercial diving.
There you go, kids. Better than being a YouTuber.
Is it?
But it's practical though. No, it's never going to be
better than my place as a YouTuber.
Yeah. Never going to be the highest income. There's jobs in Australia doing the abalone. There's lots of commercial snorkeling jobs, free diving. You know, gathering the kinna, the mussels. Yeah. There's all sorts of different jobs. One of our graduates working down in South Island, working for King Salmon, managing their fish farms and diving, maintaining that aspect of it. So there's a lot of opportunity out there for these guys to get into it. And another part of it is also the sea time and driving boats, getting skipper's tickets and going down that path as well. We've got guys now that work for NIWA doing the science part of it, driving boats. And we've got guys that have done the full circle, have worked overseas, come back and now run their own businesses doing the same sort of activities, running charters, taking people out diving. So I find that really rewarding. Yeah. Seeing them go away as come as 17-year-old and come back as as an adult that with some life skills.
Definitely. That's so cool. How do you feel about like this thing with the sea that we know so little about it? Like it's a new world, you know so much, but actually we don't know much about it. You know, there's so much more to discover. Yeah, the unknown. Like
they're still finding species of different things in the ocean that they've never seen. It's one of the only last tapped frontiers, I suppose, where we can go and explore this stuff. And as our technology is getting better, our machinery is getting better, and our resources are getting better to go and dive these places and locate this stuff. So, hey, it might be the saviour of the world too, the dive of the ocean. That harnessing some of the products that come out of the ocean now. There's plants over in Coromandel that do seafood stuff and doing all these, utilising these products that were seen as waste in the past maybe. That could be the things that help us sort of evolve and change to work with what's going on.
That's right. What about those people? I don't know if it's Tauranga. Was it Sandra who mentioned the seaweeds farming in some places in the country?
Yeah, I know they're doing that in Coromandel. There's a little firm that are starting to do that and grow seaweed, and they can use the different ingredients for a lot of different stuff. There's components. I'm not too much of the science guy, but there's lots of that they can pull out of that and grow other things with it.
Are you big on going diving and gathering like for food and stuff?
Well, I was nicknamed as the Cray Slayer, actually. See if anyone comments on that one. But no, like I do like the hunt, that aspect of it. But it's not a big aspect now. It's more about the sharing of the ocean with everyone else and getting them to see what I enjoy. I say I do some long hours sometimes, but you enjoy going to work, so it's not really work, is it? And still love getting in the water and teaching an open water course. So we've had some interesting times with all the staff having a lot of restrictions with COVID, with WorkSafe. So I've done more diving this year than I've done in a long time.
I feel like that'll be really rewarding to actually dive in, collect something yourself for you to eat. I mean, you can do fishing, but that's not. I don't feel like it's the same.
I like the part where it's a lot more interactive.
Yeah.
I find fishing quite boring, actually. I can't sit in one place for too long, and it just, if the fish, I love catching. Yeah. If the fish are on, it's cool for 10 minutes. But if they're sitting there with a line in the water, it sort of doesn't excite me. But whereas in the water, you're looking round the next rock. Yeah. Maybe here it is, and you're involved in it. So it's a lot more interactive, I think, in that sense. And finding a crayfish and bringing it up and cooking it up and doing that whole thing, it's quite cool. Often, if we're having friends around for dinner, Linda's already told them I'm bringing a cray, so there's no pressure. Oh, yeah. So you have to get a cray to bring home to put on the barbecue,
Right.
So,
I'm not going to get anything else. You have to bring it home.
Yep. So, but just mixing it up with everything else, and it's very much a delicacy still. Yeah. The stuff from the ocean.
100%.
Yeah. The crays. Scallops, the kinna, there's a lot of seafood out there that guys just love it, and it's fresh is best, right? Yeah. And if you get that opportunity, hey,
straight from the shell.
Yep. What is the name of the black one? Caviar.
Caviar.
Yeah, so
fish.
Is that like kind of like the top of what you can get regarding seafood? Because I know that it's very expensive, right?
Yeah,
it doesn't.
Have you seen the price of kinna in a container?
It doesn't sound delicious.
It's like $30.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's expensive too.
Kinna's an interesting one. It's either something you either love it or you hate it. I'm on the hate it side, pretty much.
No. Yeah, very, very salty one, right? The kinna, the one that you kind of scoop.
Yeah, like a row of orange.
It's got like a bittery taste, but I taste the creamy. Yeah.
Right.
Guys love it. Like it's something you either absolutely love
or
it
hate.
or there's no sort of middle ground really with the kinna.
Right.
But hey, that there's a big market for that too, and there's commercially harvested, and there's big guys that live their lives, kinna diving, So there's another opportunity out there for guys that want to work in that field. There's just so many opportunities, I reckon.
In Brazil, it's very expensive. The codfish, bacalhau, the codfish. There's a time of the year, I think is like one of those religious holidays that is very common to eat. The codfish, and it's just ridiculous, the price. But it's like everybody's like, ooh,
you have to have it. Yeah.
Time to have codfish. Which one is your favorite top seafood, or one that you really appreciate?
Well, I quite like gurnard as a fish for my fish and chips. It's one of my sort of favourite fish. That's one of my delicacies of the ocean. We would just fish, just a good bit of fish and chips, Snapperjacks is my little shop that I go to.
Oh, there you go. Shout out.
Shout out Snapperjacks.
We got some. That's such a cool live chat tonight, guys. Thank you so much.
And you sent a picture earlier of who you've got someone watching you. Is it from Subway?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, shout out Subway for having us on the menu screen.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. Do you mind telling the story again?
Yeah.
Darrell.
So I popped into Subway for tea tonight on the way down here, and then Paul sent me a message saying that they got the up on the live screen on the menu screen is the ALTBAYS, watching my show. So thanks, man.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Shout out to Subway in Whitianga. So we got a few more questions from the audience, which is pretty cool. So I just forgot to say that George Smith was the one who asked us about how long does it take to become a dive instructor. Thanks, George. And Greg Jensen asks, do you have communications gear to take a blind man diving? As an adventure diver? Wow, that's an interesting question. Well, he actually asked something before of like if you guys have communications systems underwater, but then he said ignore the one. So two good questions, Greg. So first, do you guys have communications underwater, and would you be able to take a blind man under the water?
Absolutely. So we've taken a lot of different people that with different disabilities, different conditions in the water. And it's never an issue, right? The water's a big balancer of people. So you're floating. So it's a sensory feeling of being in the water is a different sensation. For a lot of people, whether you're a big person or a small person, we've got guys that have got, missing limbs, missing all sorts of things and the ocean's great. So yes, we've got a full face helmet, and you could have comms set up to talk about what's going on. The big requirement that we need is a medical clearance to say that they're fit physically to go diving. So that's, can they breathe? Can they do those exercises? Not whether they can see or, that'll be an amazing experience to take someone out for a dive. We've got guys that have had where we use webbed gloves because their legs aren't working, so they can paddle with their hands.
Yeah, that's quite cool.
So yeah, absolutely. If someone's got some muscle issues and bits and pieces, the ocean is an amazing place to try that stuff out. So hey, come and see us. We'd love to hook you up and get you in the water for a play.
That's cool. Another cool. Oh, and of course, you guys have communications between each other, like we're safe, we're not, time to go.
So we have a lot of hand signals we use normally, but we can also say you can rig up the headsets and communication with the boat if you wanted to. Yeah. There's a lot of the commercial divers who use that all the time as far as they're communicating back and forward with their vessels. But there's ways of using rope signals if you're doing that, but hand signals are the biggest communication underwater.
Which one is the signal when shit goes wrong? Like which one is the signal that you don't want to see someone give?
We're out.
Out of air?
Yeah, well, that's a big one. People waving their hands around. Hopefully, if we can get people back to the surface, we can fix someone. So if they're on the bottom and they're lost, that's hard. But so dumping your weight belts and getting to the surface, then you get a high chance of saving that person. Yeah. If there was to be an incident.
Have you been to a situation where you were like, "Ooh, I have to take this person up," or something happened?
Yeah, not so much in a mate. We've had a few that you've corrected before they've got to that incident point, and you can see it by someone's eyes. Yeah. Their eyes just really big in the mask, and they say, "I don't want to be here," sort of thing, and they want to bail. So you can control their ascent and make them have a lot safer ascent, and then deal with whatever the problem was. But it is nearly a textbook incident when things go wrong. So that's where the rescue course comes in, and you learn how to you train how to deal with that sort of a scenario with the certain ratios. There's all these other requirements to try and limit those things from happening.
Right. Before I read, this is a good one. I'll ask this one first. Darrell, would you know where is the hardest place to dive in the world? Or one of the hardest
place.
If you know.
Interesting. Maybe temperature based. It would be one of the harder places to get to or get in the water because of the equipment. You need more gear. Mm-hmm. I'd love to dive in the Antarctic and cut a hole in the ice and swim under it, and it's supposed to be crystal.
Goosebumps thinking about how cool it will be.
It's supposed to be crystal clear, right? Yeah. And there's a lot of different life down there, so that'll be pretty cool. I know in Norway up the top there, they'll add extra skills when they take the regulator out of their mouth. use their other fingers to hold their mouth open because it wants to clamp shut because they're so cold.
Yeah.
Wow.
So they're learning in those sort of environments. The Galapagos is a crazy place as well, where there's a lot of sea, there's a lot of movement. When we dived there, we all got issued with their own individual EPIRBs because of all the currents.
Yeah.
So everyone, we've got our own tracking devices, which we have on a boat. Every individual diver had one themselves. Just in case you got separated. So there's a lot of safety factors that go into play in those places.
Fantastic. Before I read our last question, I asked you if you wanted a beer before the show, and you said that you don't drink. Is there any relationship between being a diver and alcohol intake, or is just your thing? Well, 2 questions there.
That's an interesting one. No, everything in moderation. So as a diver, there's no problem going out and have a beer and doing that. But obviously you don't want to be drunk when you're in the water. So it's just managing that consumption the night before a dive.
Yeah.
So that's where that fits in. Personally, I've been down that path. That's when I was working in Australia and the hands started to shake. But no, I made a life choice of many years ago now that I don't need that. I've got a bit of hypogene in there somewhere that I don't need alcohol to do that. So.
Yeah.
Nice. How many years have you been?
I'll be 12 years now.
Yeah. Because how long you don't?
4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm in or out. It's all or nothing, man. so my brother used to get me in trouble. We've locked him away.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Bring your mate.
Don't go see your brother anymore, Linda says. No, I'm joking. So I'm just going to read one more question from the audience. And again, thank you so much, you guys. So cool that you guys are engaging and showing some support. So Janine Werner, by the way, it was great to meet you last week, Janine. Great chat. Hope to have a chat with you here sometime soon. Janine says, hey, Darrell, is there any particular medical conditions or medications which might prevent someone from being able to scuba dive? She's asking for a friend with a big smile. Thanks, Janine.
Yeah, absolutely. There is some certain conditions that make you unable to dive, and some are just relative contraindications. So they may mean with certain medications you can dive. Like there's asthmatics now. Initially, many years ago, you couldn't dive as an asthmatic. It was just ruled out. Now, a lot of asthmatics dive, but it's depending on what triggers their asthma attacks and what they're in. Diabetics, there's options there as well, depending on what the triggers are and everything else. So there is definitely certain times when someone's pregnant. They don't know what the gas we're absorbing, or the nitrogen, or the air bubbles, where they're going, what they're doing. There's no science, and there's no really pregnant women that want to be the guinea pigs to test that out.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
So it's an unknown thing. So a lot of the stuff back in the 50s, I suppose, when they're doing a lot of the testing, was they used 3 groups of people. There was prisoners of war, they got an extra meal. There was the military, the very elite sort of military guys, and then there was the people from the funny farms, that were locked up in some kind of mental institution. There were different test cases when they were testing out all the different theories on how people got bent or how the incidents came about. And there hasn't been any real life sort of testing since the sort of 40s, 50s on any of that sort of stuff, because no one's game to. You can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
But so it's all theoretical sort of tests that they've done, and a lot of it has been worked out by finding out when someone has had an incident, what was the trigger?
What caused it?
And then how do they fix that? So the technologies are getting better and better on how to manage. I know they've put a lot of stipulations on some people when they've gone diving, that they can only do certain things. Once they've got their tickets, or they've managed that in their own sense. So generally it's something that the doctor must sign off. And if your own personal doctor's not aware of it, or not comfortable doing that, there is specialist dive doctors that will sign that off, that understand the complications or the limitations of scuba diving, I suppose.
Fantastic. Are there any competitions or contests that you've been to, or that are relevant in the country when it comes to diving, or that you won or you were part of it?
So we've done dive festivals here in the past where we've done big functions and social activities, and people do games and activities. Cool. Last one was just before COVID, so we'll see that may come back to life again. But it's not that hugely competitive in that sense. Privately, it might be with your mates, but it's the spearfishing comps and things they do where they go out and they target stuff. And I know they have the Mercury Bay Open as an annual event where they go out and then they often sell the fish to lions, and they get, you know, all the fish that gets caught gets weighed for your prize, and then it gets donated or sold to someone. So as a fundraising activity, so that's quite a cool way of utilising the resource. But it's also, they're very targeted in the free diving aspect, where they're not wasteful, right? You're only allowed 2 of this species and 1 of the species, and it's a very controlled process. So it's quite a cool way of making it competitive, I suppose. Yeah.
Right. Matt is asking about the most mind-blowing thing you have seen on the dive, but I think we've been there. You said something about the whale, right?
Yeah,
the whale coming at you.
Yeah, that was quite a crazy experience. Another one that would have to rate up there was diving in the Galapagos with the marine goannas. So they're like a big lizard, basically.
Wow.
Oh.
And they walk on the bottom like they're a dog.
Yeah.
And then they push off and they swim like an eel.
Oh, that's random.
So
Can they walk on land?
Yeah, so they walk up in the Galapagos. The only ones that go under the water. So they go under the water and eat the grasses and things. So they walk on the bottom like they're
crazy.
Yeah, like they're a dog or something with a tail, and then they kick their legs in and swim off. So that was quite an eye-opening experience, seeing these things that shouldn't be underwater.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know? It's often even crazy. You see it out here with some of the birds diving down to catch fish, and
they're in there for a while as well.
You swim around and you see a bird under the water swimming up to the surface.
Fantastic! Wow,
so
cool.
There's so many different experiences you can have, you know, on different locations around the world, and I think we're very blessed in New Zealand with some of the best sort of conditions. I love going overseas and having my week's holiday somewhere in a nice tropical destination, and you can, but at the end of it, you're finished, you're done, you're ready to come home. Whereas we dive out here every other day, and it's different and the different conditions. So, you know, so it's a lot more diverse, I think, the diving inside New Zealand.
Fantastic. So if you at home, if you're watching this and you're thinking, man, I want to go diving. Yes, you should do it. Come to Whitianga, come to the Coromandel. It's paradise. These guys are like top pros, and they will take you to amazing places. And if you haven't had the experience yet, maybe now is the time. Okay, the borders are open. It's time to come and have some fun in New Zealand. Darrell, so how do we get to know about like prices, times of the years, options that you guys offer for courses? Where do we go? How do we get in touch with the Dive Zone?
So we're on Campbell Street, Whitianga, open 7 days, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. pretty much daily. So come and see us. Phone number is 07867 1580, and get into it.
Say it
Get
again.
into it.
07867 1580. So let's get into it.
All right. And all the social medias and websites, right?
Yeah, so divezonewhitianga.co.nz. Look us up. If you're keen on doing it as a career or want to come and have a look, flick me an email, flick me a text, and we can get you out on the water and you'll be able to see what it's like.
Cool.
That's right.
How about we get you in the water?
I've been once, but I want to do it again. It's been too long. I've been here for 9 years and I've done once only, so I think I should,
Yeah.
Oh, look, we're so blessed up here with islands and spots and locations that we can get in and go dive. And it's so cool.
Cool. Let's do it. We'll take the cameras and do a special show. Yeah, shall we? Fantastic.
How live what do you need to run it? Can we do this on a boat?
We can figure it out.
We can figure it out.
Taylor says yes.
It might be hard to live stream, but we can definitely do like a version of the podcast or something that we're there.
Sitting in Gemstone Bay in the reserve.
Yeah.
That would be cool, eh? Should we organise something?
We have to talk to Mark from Glass Bottom, maybe see through the bottom of his boat, you know?
Nice. And we'll bring Jackson back to do something special. Nice, man.
That's cool.
For the people who are curious, go on the website, Dive Zone Whitianga. These guys do so many cool things for the community. They're involved in a bunch of cool projects. So it's not just the school. They're awesome, but they're also involved with a lot of cool stuff. So, do some research that you love what they're doing. Christine, any questions before we wrap it up?
No,
What a
but
cool show, eh?
Yeah, I'm very excited to see you dive and do a show on it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
now we have to. It's
Yeah.
fantastic.
We'll put you on a comms. We'll have it set it up so you can talk back to someone on. You can be on the boat or whatever.
Yeah,
Go nowhere.
yeah.
Can't breathe.
Bless you.
Hey, I love these shows,
Yeah.
that we get to learn stuff, and we've been here for almost pretty
2
much 2
hours.
hours just learning and chatting, and this is what the
This
show is
is good.
about, eh?
Yeah, love it.
Cool. Thank you so much for coming
Thank
tonight.
you for having me.
Yes.
Once again.
Darrell, what a pleasure, man.
Hey, anytime.
Yeah.
We might have to bring you back, man, to tell more
Maybe we'll
stories.
bring Linda too.
Yeah. She's got her own stories, I tell
Yeah.
you.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Fair enough. So, Linda,
Open invite.
pick up the red phone when we call you. Don't worry. Thank you so much, Darrell.
Cheers, mate.
Guys, what a pleasure. So I love these shows. We're just chatting and, learning things. So that's what ALTBAYS is all about. If you have suggestions, if you think this show would be suitable for some cool people out there in our community or all around New Zealand, actually, we're starting to bring cool people from other areas of the country. Stay tuned. After show 50, this is going to take a new direction, and I think you guys are going to enjoy what we're up to. We're live 3 times per week, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 7 p.m. If you cannot watch the live stream, the video becomes available on YouTube as soon as we finish the live stream. And on the next day, it's on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, all the main audio podcast platforms. We have a website, ALTBAYS.nz, where you can find all these platforms. And if you want to get in touch to produce something like this show, we can do it. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Talk to your friends. Is the best thing that can happen is when you talk to someone about how cool this show is. And if you don't like it, say that you don't like it as well. It's good for us too. Doesn't matter.
Jump on the live feed and tell us you don't like it.
Yeah, if you don't like it, you can go on the chat.
Jump on the chat
and say it.
and watch
"Hey,
us and not like it.
I actually don't like it. I cannot even understand what this guy is saying.
Yeah.
Which I understand because sometimes I understand what I'm saying. So it's all good. Hey,
Subscribe.
and subscribe.
Yeah,
Subscribe. Do you know why it's important to subscribe to the YouTube channel, Darrell? So you monetize with it.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's how it goes. Because people say, but I'm watching anyway. Yes,
No,
but like
subscribe.
we're not television that we have a bunch of like big industries putting money to make things happen. No, we are actually working our full-time jobs and we're paying for everything here. So if you guys subscribe, you support us so we can start to get a little bit
Yeah,
of
guys,
money.
fuel's expensive. Subscribe.
It's expensive.
What is the cost of subscribe?
Oh no, you just
Nothing,
click on the
subscribe.
thing. You
It's
just
free.
subscribe. You just go and subscribe. So like if you have a Google account, you automatically have a YouTube account. So it's easy to tell because on the right side you can see your name there. So Darrell, blah blah blah. Or dives
As
on-
you can see, I'm an immigrant, right? So I haven't brought up with this. This is
but that's good because
Bring me up.
a lot of
Yeah.
people
Talk to me.
A lot of
Talk you
people
through
a lot of people ask us. They're like, "Oh, how do we support you guys?" Because I understand. It took me time to understand the platform. So it's not like television that you go and watch and they can tell the numbers. Like for us, it's great when people subscribe. So there's just an option right on the corner there, like a big.
you get so much volume, right? And then
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's something with the algorithm. The more people who subscribe, YouTube realizes, okay, these guys are creating content and people are engaging. So they start to spread the words about the video.
Yep.
So more people have, when you go on YouTube and there's like those recommended videos and you're like, why is this coming to me? Because there's rotation. So that's our journey at the moment. We have to get this momentum. So our videos start to be recommended. Suggested. That's the word. Suggested. So
Cool.
subscribing is important. But also the hours. So like we're doing pretty good with the amount of hours because people are watching the show, which is pretty good. So that's another way to get there. So they kind of
I need to win, guys. I need to win. So
Subscribe.
I need the most votes on my
Watch.
I know,
podcast.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's gonna happen. And that's the thing. Once it lifts, all the videos lift together. So
Yeah.
You'll
So
be
if
there,
you watch
man.
this at Subway, go home and rewatch it.
yes.
Yeah, cheers, Paul.
Cheers, Paul. Guys, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. On Friday, for the people who are curious about our surprise guests, on Friday, we have 2 TikTok influencers. So if you have no idea what TikTok is, that's your chance. Friday, 7 p.m. I'll see you there. Ciao. Bye.
ALTBAYS.